Welcome along, guys. Well, I'm back on the RSV4 1100 factory, and I've been riding this around for a week now. It goes back to wheels, motorcycles in a couple of days. There's rain forecast for the rest of the week, so I think that's going to be my last opportunity to ride the bike. So I'm going to give you my final thoughts on this machine, what I like about it, what I don't like about it, and crowdfunding details so I can buy one. Let's jump on. Well, it's been a hell of a week living with this bike. I was super excited when this was dropped off to me by Wheels Motorcycles. Massive thanks to Wheels Motorcycles, by the way. It's in the contract. I've got to say that every second sentence. But I was so excited when this bike was dropped off to me. It was a bike I was so pleased to try. When I saw it at Motorcycle Live in the last year, I was like, oh, that looks incredible. Then of course the launch happened, and there's all these reviews coming out from the launch event, and everyone said how amazing it was, how fantastic the power delivery was, the handling of it. I think it took people by surprise how good it was compared to the Ducati. I don't think anyone expected this bike to be as good as it is, from really just an engine swap and some tweaks on a 10-year-old design. I mean, let's be honest, this bike is 10 years old, really. So in this video I'm going to talk about the things I love about this bike, the things which I dislike about this bike. There are some negatives with this bike, not many, but there are a few negatives. The best thing about this bike is the way it makes you feel. It makes you feel so special. It really complements your riding, because the handling, it is just super stable. In the corners it just lies down and sits there. No matter if it's even if it's a little bit bumpy, it doesn't unsettle it. It just gives you super confidence to lay the bike on its side. Okay, so what do I love about this bike? I mean, there is so much to love about this bike. So much to love. I think the thing I love the most, I'm going to give these in order. I don't often give my top things I like in order, but I'm going to on this. I think the best thing about this bike is the soundtrack. I mean, it is directly from MotoGP. The sound this thing makes is absolutely fantastic, and this comes with the road legal Aprilia as standard. So this is as it comes. That exhaust is fully road legal on this. What they've managed to do is put a valve in the exhaust, so below 5,000 revs the bike is silent. Let me take it below 5,000 revs. It's as quiet as a mouse below 5,000 revs. Go over 5,000 revs, the valve opens and it howls like something out of MotoGP. That is how to make a standard exhaust. Take note, everybody else. It is incredible, and the sound of it just makes you want to go fast because you just want to hear it. So that is my top favourite thing about this bike, the absolute beautiful noise from the V4 motor. And it doesn't sound like the Tuono, it sounds much more aggressive than how the Tuono sounds. The Tuono sounds amazing, but this just sounds more snarly, more poppy. You can tell it's higher tuned. It's unbelievable. My second favourite thing about this bike is probably the handling. It's just super stable in the corners, super confidence inspiring. It can be a little bit slow to turn, you know, it's not quick steering really. Hang on. It's not a super quick steering bike, but it is super stable. The third thing I love about it is of course the engine. Now the engine's a bit of a love-hate relationship with this. It is so torquey, so incredibly powerful, that I find it, so the engine is actually a plus and a minus for me. It's so fast, it makes its power so low down the rev range, the speed is just ballistic. It is an amazing masterpiece of an engine, and when they've dynoed these up against the Pani V4, the Ducati, this is actually like 8 brake horsepower more than the V4 Panigale. It is an absolute monster, this engine. I think it has some, on the dyno tune I saw, not even tune, just a power run, this made like 209 brake horsepower at the back wheel. I think the Panigale made like 202, something like that. It's an absolute monster, this engine, and it's just the way, over 5,000 revs. The way it makes that power, it's just like being fired from a catapult. It's incredible, and it is extremely difficult to ride this bike slowly, and that is what I don't like about it. It is a license loser, this machine. You look down and you cannot believe the speeds you're doing just after a little bit of tickle of the throttle, and what with the sound of the engine as well, you want to open it up because you want to hear it, and you can just be doing crazy speeds in a blink of an eye, in an instant. So that is my third most favourite thing about this bike. It would probably be at the top if this wasn't really a road test, whereby being that quick is actually a bit of an issue when you're on the Queen's Highway. My fourth favourite of this, probably the exclusivity. You are not going to see many of these around. Aprilia is a relatively small company. I know Piaggio, who owns Aprilia, is obviously huge, but Aprilia itself is a small part of Piaggio. They don't knock out a lot of bikes, and people are just concerned with buying Aprilias. I think back in the 90s there were some reliability issues, there were some electrical problems with Aprilias, and I think that is still echoing around today, and people think that they are unreliable. Now, they are really not unreliable bikes. The issue is probably the dealer network. Because they're quite small, they don't have a massive dealer network, so I think that puts people off. But because of that, if you have a local dealer, you're not going to see many of these on the road. The Pani V4s, they've only been out 5 minutes, and I see every time I go to a bike meet there's at least 1 or 2 there, every time. You don't see that many RSV4s, and I really don't think you're going to see that many of these 1100 factory versions. Whoa, into the 30, see what I mean? Keeping the speed in check is not easy. My fifth favourite thing is the electronics package on this machine. I think Aprilia were one of the first manufacturers to actually bring out electronics and rider aids on bikes. The APRC system, which is what they call it, I think came out around 2007. I'll flash it on the screen, that is a bit of a guess. But the RSV4 came out. The first couple of years, I believe, didn't have the electronics. Then they brought out the APRC equipped bikes, and since then that system has just been developed. The highlight for me are these little paddles on the left hand switch gear. Minus up and down just increases your traction control on the fly. More traction, less traction, right there. No going into the menus, just bang bang bang, adjust your traction. I think it's such a good idea having the buttons here, and the way the electronics give you I've never ridden a bike where the electronics give you confidence as much as they do on this. Because of all this, you may have noticed, you know, the display lights up like a Christmas tree with all the lights flashing at you, but you can really see that the electronics are actually doing something. You can really see that when the wheelie control comes in, that it's keeping it under control. It's flashing, you know it's helping you. I just find the way these electronics work really adds to the rider confidence. You can even adjust how much wheelie control you want. I'm not talking about traction control, I'm talking about wheelie control independently. You can turn wheelie control off and have full traction if you want. There's not many bikes you can do that on. You can adjust how much wheelie control you want independently of the traction control. You can adjust how sensitive you want your ABS. 3 settings of ABS sensitivity. I've on level 3, which is the highest, and I've noticed a couple of times the ABS interfering a little bit, so I can turn that down, and I can turn it off if I want to, if I'm on track. So the electronics on this bike have been around so long, they're so well developed. It's even got a cruise control, it's even got a pit limiter, it's got extras which you just don't find on other bikes. And yeah, the electronics are absolutely awesome on this. Other things which haven't made the top 5 but are still brilliant about this machine is the overall quality and build quality of the bike. I mentioned it before, but all of the Pagios, the Moto Guzzi's, I find them a really good quality bike. The plastics they use are not cheap. A lot of manufacturers, when they use plastic on their bikes, it just looks cheap. All the plastics are really high quality. All of the bolts and fixtures are high quality. As I mentioned in the other first ride review, some of the bolt heads have got Aprilia Racing laser etched into them. It's just the quality, the switchgear quality is fantastic. The throttle grip, there's no waggle in this throttle. You know, it's just little details. The mirrors, the way they pivot and pop back into place. Little things like that, it's just quality. And as they say, you can't put a price on quality. Well, you can actually, it's £21,500. So I guess we should come on to the dislikes. There aren't that many dislikes with this bike. There are a few niggles, I would like to call them, but the biggest problem for me, as I mentioned, is the performance of this machine. It is bananas, absolutely bananas. And I think I've just about managed it now. I've just about managed to be able to ride this bike without having to open it up everywhere and go crazy. It's taken me all week to get to that stage where I'm riding it and I can ride it sensibly. And it rides sensibly very well. I know this is a dislike, but it actually, the low end power delivery, the throttle, now I've got it in track mode, which seems to be the softest throttle response. Track mode seems to be that way, but you can actually ride this pretty sensibly. And if you can just resist the urge to open it up, it's actually a very nice bike just to potter about on. But that's my biggest problem. It's just so fast. I'm just not sure there's a place for something this bananas on the road. On the track, absolutely, but you need to be some sort of, you need to have self-control of a god to be able to resist opening this bike up. Little niggles with this now is it's difficult to find neutral. Oh, I find it as an example, but I put it second. You pull up somewhere and you're like, neutral, oh there it is, neutral. Well, that's a bad example. That's obviously a very bad example because I found it there, but it can be. You pull up, you know, it's not a Suzuki. Again, a Suzuki you can find neutral every time. You will sit there with the gear lever up and down, second first. Sometimes it's better to bang it into neutral while the bike's still rolling before you stop, but a little niggle can be hard to find neutral. That's one of my dislikes. The quick shifter can also be sometimes a little bit clunky. It's a case of getting used to it and knowing when to use it. It's much better than a quick shifter on a V-twin. but it's not as super smooth as a quick shifter is on a straight 4. It's a case of knowing when to use it. If you're not properly on the throttle when you do it, it can be a little bit knocky. So I think that's just more of a case of getting to know how it works. Another dislike of this bike is for a taller guy like me. I'm 6'2", it is a little bit stubby. It's still pretty big, it's still pretty wide, you know, it's not a tiny little bike, it's just a little bit stubby. Like tucking down, you're right by that screen, there's not a lot of tuck down space. Also the air coming off that screen is straight into my helmet, there's not a lot of wind protection. I think I'd have to put some sort of double bubble screen on this if it were mine, just to give a bit of extra wind protection. But it's a little bit cramped, there is a bit of weight on your wrist compared to my GSXR. It's not as comfortable as the GSXR. But it's not so uncomfortable that I wouldn't buy one. Another negative, the design of this bike is getting a little bit long in the tooth now. This bike came out 10 years ago and it hasn't really changed since then. Oh. It looks beautiful. The styling of this bike was it must have been way ahead of its time when it came out, because it still looks good. But I think it just needs a little update. Some LED headlights, it's got LED indicators, it's got LED tail light, but it's still got halogen headlights. Just a slight refresh. I'm not talking much, just maybe the front end restyled slightly. Nothing major, because I still think it's an incredibly beautiful bike. But just for 21 grand, just a tiny little tart up maybe. That's neutral. That is another criticism I've found. A couple of times I've actually put it in neutral when I've been using the blipper. There we go. Yeah, that's about 3 times I've done that now. I've gone to knock it down from second to first, and I've hit neutral, which is really rather horrible sometimes. If you're expecting a bit of engine braking and then it's not there, it's actually no fun. Other little things which are irritating is the filler. It's the same on the Tuono. It's such a small little hole to get the pump in, and I've spilt petrol all down the lovely matte finish paint. It's so hard to fill this bike up without spilling something. It's annoying. I don't understand why it's like that. Perhaps an aftermarket fuel filler would sort that out. But it does annoy me that you can't put petrol in it without sploshing it all over your fuel tank. Another thing, there you go, this is the niggles coming now. Another thing on here, if you cycle through the menu, with these little toggle buttons here, they're a little bit small and a bit fiddly when you've got gloves on, but that's not my criticism. One of the things it displays is your maximum speed, how fast the bike has gone. Now, I don't really want people to know how fast I've been riding, and I certainly don't want the people just to flick through the toggle. I'm not going to bring it up, but believe me, if I were to toggle that switch a couple of items to the right, then it would show me my maximum speed, which yeah, you don't really want that. What I'd rather see is maximum lean angle. What was my maximum lean angle from the little lean angle sensor, because you can't actually look at that when you're riding. That's what I'd like to know, not how fast I've been going, not what my maximum speed was. That's something you don't want people to be able to see. Another negative and it's quite a big one, this, and it's to do with the fuel filler of such. There's no fuel gauge on this bike. It is 2019. There is no excuse for every motorcycle available not to have a fuel gauge. This doesn't. I don't know if it's because Aprilia, you know, this is a race machine, you don't need a fuel gauge. It may very well be based, you know, a race machine, but people want to use this on the road. You need a fuel gauge. Yes, you can do the trip, but because the trip is here, it's quite fiddly. You can't reset the trip once you're moving. You can only reset it once the bike is stationary. So if you forget to set your trip as you leave the petrol station, you've got to stop to reset it, which is a pain in the backside. Just give me a fuel gauge. So what about servicing on this? This is something which came up from some of the questions from my first ride video. Well, it's not too bad, really, considering what you're buying. 6,000 mile service intervals. The basic oil change will cost you, or the basic service, should I say, there's obviously more stuff involved than just an oil change, but it'll cost you around £300. The 12,000 mile service is the expensive one, and that's where they have to check the valve clearances, and to do the 12,000 mile service you're looking at about £800. So a bit more than a straight 4 engine. Straight 4 engines are normally about 600, 500 or 600. I think it's around about 7-hour job to check the valve clearances, and that's if nothing needs adjusting. So it is slightly more expensive than a straight 4 to run in terms of servicing, but not too bad. Also, fuel consumption on this. This is slightly more thirsty than a straight 4 engine. I'd say sort of 15-20% more thirsty than a straight 4. This V4 design, you know, you can't get all of that performance, all of that beautiful soundtrack without some additional expense, and it is a little bit more thirsty. Like I say, about 20%. What is interesting, riding with Womble with his 1100 Tuono factory, it's almost using exactly the same amount of petrol as the Tuono, so it's not too bad for fuel. It's really not too bad for fuel. I think I'd rather just put that extra 20% extra in over a straight 4 for that soundtrack alone. I mean, I've pointed out some negative things about this bike in this review, but all of them really pale into insignificance to the actual thrill and warm fuzzy feeling this bike gives you inside when you ride it, or even just look at it. It's an absolute masterpiece. There we go, guys. Massive thanks to Wheels Motorcycles for lending me this bike for a week. I mean, come on, unbelievable that they trusted me of all people with an RSV4 factory 1100 for a week. Absolutely incredible. Massive thanks to Wheels Motorcycles. Please check them out. They've got these in stock ready to go out the door. If you want to ride this exact bike, this is their demonstrator, so get yourself up there, have a go on this yourself, and tell me you don't love it. Oh, it's so good.